After the end of a good fight, you deserve an ice-cold reward. Modelo, you put in the hours, the energy, the tough labor, because you know the bigger the fight, the better the reward. Modelo, the mark of the fighter. Drink responsibly. Beer imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, die-in time is here. That's right, we're talking about The Terminator for its 40th anniversary here on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal, Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from the future or the past. Who can say? This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we're dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters. And today we're going to unpack all the goriest of details of 1984's The Terminator, in the hopes that a Sarah J. Connor's untimely end is just the beginning of the jokes we might make at their expense. And as always, there's only one person I trust that if it smells like I have kept a dead cat in my flea-ridden hotel room, she won't take it personal when I tell her to fuck off, asshole. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
I thought you were gonna say that I would be the only one that would leave you a message telling you that I was at Tech Noir.
Well, it's one thing to leave a message and say I'm at Tech Noir. It's another thing that when you tell the cops you're at Tech Noir, you know, a guy who does not look like he should know what that is, like, yeah, I know that place. It's on Pico. Everybody knows where Tech Noir is on Pico.
It's the hot spot.
But why? It's got outdoor furniture. I mean, it has everything. Ineffectual bodyguards. It's got what appears to be a very cheap bar and an ineffectual railing system that just keeps people from rushing out of the establishment when gunfire breaks out.
But it's got a very futuristic name.
It does have a futuristic name, but can you tell me what else is futuristic about it or noirish about it?
It's a little smoky.
But that was every bar in 1984 Los Angeles. There was no.
That's true.
You weren't forced to go outside to smoke yet, so everything was smoky.
I mean, maybe they turned on like some lights and you look like you have like old blind shadows across your face and and true that kind of lighting that makes everybody look elegant.
Yeah, there's very few guys drinking Boilermakers at the bar and lamenting the fact the woman and the statue of a blackbird got out of your hands. There's not a lot of noir going on.
You can't see it, but the bathroom doors are marked dames. I was going to say dames and broads, but that'd be the same thing, wouldn't it? I don't know what would be the male equivalent to a dame or a broad.
Gents, palookas.
Palookas, there you go. Palookas and dames. There you go.
I really had to think on my feet there.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's perfect.
We're talking about the Terminator. Now, every Halloween-ish or October, let's say, right? I've trying to now focus on a movie or movies that were like the bigger horror tent poles of that given year. And we've kind of spread it out this year, actually. We've hit more 1984s than I had previously planned. It just kind of turned out that way. But I certainly, out of all those 1984 horror movies, with the exception of if you included Ghostbusters, I think the other most influential movie, nevertheless horror tinged motion picture, would be 1984's The Terminator.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I would agree with you there.
It just influences so much from this moment going forward, to the point where it's one of those movies like a Halloween, like a Mad Max, that all of a sudden all these palookas, if I might borrow a phrase, think to themselves, well, I can make one of those. And then no one ever does besides James Cameron.
No.
It's easier than it looks to think that you can do this. It's quite another thing to take what is ultimately a very cheap, tawdry little action thriller and make something so anthemic out of it as this motion picture does. What was the first time you ended up seeing James Cameron's The Terminator?
Oh, wow. I did not see this at the theater.
Nor did I, no.
But when this came to cable, it was my jam for about 2 years straight. Every time it was on, I'm like, oh, shit, Terminator's on. And I would just sit and watch it from beginning to end, regardless of whatever else I have to be doing at the time.
Yeah, I think younger generations than us probably are much more centered on the sequel, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which is completely understandable. It's practically designed for teenagers and young people, so it's more appealing in many, many ways. But I, like you, saw this over and way more times than I've ever seen Terminator 2. Not that I dislike it. I love it quite a bit. But this, as you're saying, is like one of those cable staples that just played on a loop, because the gore was stuff that you could kind of get away with even on an afternoon. And the violence is just shrouded in explosions of smoke and puff, you know?
Right. And like the one sex scene, and it is fairly tasteful as far as the sex scenes go.
Yeah. There are very few sex scenes that really center on people's hands clasping. And it struck me this time how hand-centric this particular sex scene is in this flea-ridden hotel.
Is this the only, off the top of your head, that you could think of, is this the only James Cameron movie that actually has a sex scene? Because I feel like he's, there's Titanic.
Yeah, I was about to say Titanic's the big one, but that also has its main motif being, I'm getting sex so good, look at my hand. That's how good this is going.
Yeah, I feel like romance and sexuality is not something he's particularly interested in his movies. But, you have to give this, you have to give, a story like this some character arc that makes it interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's tied into the plot of the movie. I just don't think he has it's not something he's interested in portraying on screen. He's more of a world builder. And then he has intricate details woven into character. There's a lot of pluses in the James Cameron camp. Let's put that out away.
I have no problem with James Cameron. And I think that it's funny that people, check the ego on this guy. My God, he's so arrogant. And it's like, if I was James Cameron, I would be insufferable.
Yeah. And just as his ex-wives, I think he is to a certain degree. His last movie was all about him kind of being an insufferable dad. So like he's now, I think, aware of it to the point where he's making art about it. I don't know that he certainly wasn't aware of it at the time that he's making this, which you have to put yourself in a mindset of like where he is when he dreams up this idea. He's on the set of Piranha 2, The Spawning. Have you ever suffered through that monstrosity?
I probably have, but if I did, I don't remember anything about it.
I sought it out, after, because my first Cameron movie was Aliens. And that, as I said in our Aliens episode, like that, I went in one person and I came out a different person from that motion picture experience. It literally changed the trajectory of my life and how I thought about film and what I thought about horror. And it galvanized the person that I am now. So when I heard that there was other James Cameron movies to see, I instantly sought them out. Now, it took me a little while to get my hands, or eyeballs in this case, on seeing The Terminator. But it took even longer to find a copy of The Spawning, which I was hoping, and, this James Cameron movie that barely anyone's ever seen. Like, this has to be really, really good. And you watch it and you're like, oh my God, this is fucking terrible. is just,
is it like a failure on all fronts?
I mean, the movie was taken
screenwriting,
away from him. Half of it's completely shot by a different person. So if there is a James Cameron movie in it, there is very little evidence as such. He has never gone back and go, it was a misunderstood, piece of film, or he's just like, they took it away from me. I have no bearing on what people actually ended up seeing. I don't want to revisit it. There is no director's cut. It's just a monstrosity and a failure. And I'm glad that I was able to recover from it. But he has this nightmare during filming when he gets sick in Italy about a metal skeleton, clawing its way towards him and catching on fire. And he's like, holy shit, what an idea. What an image. I gotta figure out how to make this a fucking movie. And then he's like, well, how do people who have little credits to their name, make a mark in the movie industry these days? It's like, I'm going to make a fucking horror movie. I'm going to John Carpenter this shit. And so he figures out this sort of plot of these two metal soldiers who come back in time and try to find the one lady who's going to give birth to the human savior of the future. And then he's like, one of them's going to be like that exoskeleton thing. And one guy's going to be liquid metal. And he's like, no one's going to buy that liquid metal shit. I gotta figure out a different way around this. So he comes up with the idea of having this Reese character be a battle-scarred human coming back to protect, his best friend and mentor's mom from this unkillable Terminator. And, you get that sort of Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees style unstoppable killer in the middle of modern day Los Angeles. It's sci-fi, it's horror, it's action, all wrapped up in one neat, gritty looking package.
Yeah, and he does throw a little romance in, but that is clearly the part of the story he is the least interested in.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, why is this one person so dedicated to helping someone else? And at first you think it is duty, and then he kind of lets this other person in. He drops his guard. He begins to share his past, a future that she can barely understand. And it's very hard to believe. And certainly no one else does. And they're drawn together. Is it the most effective part? No, it isn't. Okay. But it occupies, for a movie that from 20 minutes on is just like an endless fucking chase. It's a nice breather, if I'm being honest with you.
No, it is. I think that, despite it feeling like it's not his favorite part to do, it still works pretty well. Yeah. I don't have a problem with the love story in Titanic either. I mean, people, who are like, just cut the crap and get to the ship sinking. It's like, well, I mean, you have to have a human element to these kinds of things, I mean, yeah, sure. These are, in Titanic's case, these are, made up characters, to create this sense of drama. But
whereas in the Terminator, these are real people that we have read about.
Well, you know what I mean? Like,
yes. Yeah. I do.
But like, you have to put somewhat of a human element in it.
Otherwise, you wouldn't care when shit goes wrong. It's the thing about horror movies that I think ultimately makes them universal, in a sense, is that you have to have empathy for the characters at the center of that horror movie. Otherwise, you will not care that their lives are in danger, that something scary and bad will happen to them. If they're just a-holes, as we discovered in later editions of, let's say, Friday the 13th or A Nightmare on Elm Street, or, any one of the cheapies that we've covered since. Like, if they're all jerks, you don't care. You're just like, okay, that one got a football javelin to the chest. That's kind of cool. And then you spend 10 minutes trying to figure out how you make a knife football. And we never figured it out.
Whereas here, the only question you have is, how did Bill Paxton get a tire track on his face?
I mean, he definitely has the most unique makeup of anyone. And they are made up. They have put on a face to go hang out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, you've got Bill Paxton, you've got Brian Thompson from Cobra, and one other guy.
and the guy who's like, okay, I'll give you my clothes. I just happen to be wearing XXL clothes tonight, which is good news for you. That is an interesting friend dynamic between those three guys, because it seems like this is very common for that early 80s period of like punks be dangerous, but they only seem to be dangerous punks. They don't seem to have any camaraderie beyond smashing beer bottles next to one another.
Yeah, they kind of come off like they're like 15 or 16, but they're actually like 25.
Right, yeah. And yeah, outside of their audacious fashion sense and their desire to wear lots of layers in, Los Angeles weather, which, depends. A fog can roll in. We could be in the middle of winter. This doesn't really seem, it seems like people are layering at this point, but we never really get a date of when exactly this is in 1984. It
just looks, everything looks kind of dreary.
The fashion in this is just off the chain. Every part of it. The fact that Reese is able to get pants that fit off of an unhoused person in an alleyway is a miracle.
He doesn't even have to use like a piece of clothesline to he doesn't have to Jethro from the Beverly Hillbillies to make it fit.
I do like his methodology of finding shoes, which is just hold them up to your feet and go. This is the time when you could find Nikes in a basket that you could just pull out. I don't think it's that way anymore. There's a lot that's really interesting about this that seems far-flung at the time. Because in 1984, the idea that technology would attempt to supplant us on Earth was a very sci-fi idea. And now we are 40 years later.
Were we ever so green? Were we ever so innocent?
This is our every fucking day. There's absolutely a place for AI to remove redundant tasks. And I'm not the first person to say this, but it bears repeating. AI should not be designed to create art. It should be designed to take over the shit I don't want to do that gets in the way of me making art myself.
Right.
But for some reason,
it's not like we're not in immediate danger of being supplanted or taken over or just completely destroyed by actual three-dimensional robots.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean the technology is not actively working against us.
Yes. Because ultimately it's only moral codes are what's written into it by people with access to those codes. And as we have seen in the last few 40 fucking years, these people are not to be trusted.
No.
They do not have our best interests at heart. It is not the place where the best of us seem to arrive and work towards the elimination of terrible tasks for humanity so that we might live in a paradise. It's like, how do I fucking grift off of this?
Right. How can I make this so it benefits me and me alone?
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
So much of what we want to do can seem impossible, but the highest achievers among us are the people still striving, still reaching for something. It's those people who approach the impossible and embrace it. There's a vehicle for people like that. It's called the Defender. The Defender is an icon, reimagined for a new generation of explorers and fully equipped for 21st century adventures. 3D surround cameras with ClearSight Ground View let you see underneath the vehicle and anticipate obstacles in rough terrain. And ClearSight Rear View offers an unobstructed rear view, even when you can't see through the back window. Driver aid technologies make driving and parking simpler, while intuitive driver displays are customizable to your journey. Plus, the next-generation Pivi Pro infotainment system helps make more of your world. There's a family of vehicles for Defender, too. Meet the Defender 90, Defender 110, and the 8-seat Defender 130. Are you ready to embrace the impossible? Explore the Defender at LandRoverUSA.com.
Building a business may feel like a big jump, but OnDeck Small Business Loans can help keep you afloat. With lines of credit up to $100,000 and term loans up to $250,000, OnDeck lets you choose the loan that's right for your business. As a top-rated online small business lender, OnDeck's team of loan advisors can help you find the right business loan to fit your needs. Visit OnDeck.com for more information. Depending on certain loan attributes, your business loan may be issued by OnDeck or Celtic Bank. OnDeck does not lend in North Dakota. All loans and amounts subject to lender approval.
In the course of the movie, how we're told it all happens is that Cyberdyne Systems, creates this artificial intelligence to watch over our defense apparatus, and it immediately, as it gains sentience, locks in that humanity has to be eliminated. It's just too fucking messy, y'all. It is not the kind of bitch that lives for the drama, whatever you want to say. So this intelligence decides to launch every nuke in the world at us. Those that survive have to, work the let's kill humanity camps, which is interesting. Batches of them get away and start a resistance. And so the Terminator hive mind decides, we've got an idea to get rid of the humans that are left. Let's create cyborgs that can blend in with humans and destroy that resistance from the inside, and then executes that plan by constructing the largest Austrian man you've ever seen in your life.
Just take a robot skeleton and attach several pounds of ground beef to it.
Just the biggest motherfucker with the largest leg day thighs you've ever seen in your fucking life. And an absolute unit. And Arnold Schwarzenegger is many things, but blending in is not amongst them. He sticks out on the planet fucking Earth. A giant squid could catch a glimpse of Schwarzenegger and what the fuck is going on with that dude?
Well, of course, I mean, and we do have to mention that as most people know at this point, that he was not the first choice.
Right.
To play the Terminator.
No. Another completely normal choice was posited. What if the Terminator was O.J. Simpson?
I mean, when you that sounds like a joke. It
does sound like a joke. It really does, but it really fucking happened. They really thought about it hard. They really pushed.
And apparently the reasoning that this was not James Cameron's idea. This was suggested to the studio. Why don't you cast OJ as the Terminator? But James Cameron's reasoning was no one would believe him as a killing machine.
Yeah, and and to OJ's credit, he's picked up that mantra and really run with it ever since. If you could say one thing about O.J. Simpson is that he's trying to project, I'm not a killing machine as much as possible. And he failed in that particular regard.
I'll show you who could be a believable killing machine.
You just get me the right cocktail of drugs and hatred of women and park me outside my ex-wife's house, and you'll see what I can do, motherfucker. And so there you go. It lives on in infamy.
And I believe Lance Henriksen was also was actually Cameron's choice.
Yeah. Well, he's a Cameron guy, and it makes sense in a certain way in that he looks like he does have the barest amount of flesh outside of an inorganic skeleton.
And I would totally buy Lance Henriksen as a killing machine.
Yeah, I think that is something he can get away with. But there is also that sort of the genius behind Schwarzenegger is that he is inherently unreal. There's an unreality to his actual physical appearance that says something is happening there that just doesn't seem like it can be accomplished by a human being. And we've covered Conan the Barbarian. We've covered Commando, believe it or not, recent additions to Kill by Kill. And he is such a fucking unit that he's a special effect unto himself. That unreality really does seem to work. There are points in this movie where he's wearing false eyebrows and you're like, something seems off. And that's right, because he's not supposed to be human. It's fucking, his unreality helps when you have this completely fake robot man, you know, trying to rip out his own eyeball in a mirror. The reason it works is because it just doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, when he's you know hiding out, he doesn't need to look human. He doesn't need to blend in as much.
And I think one of the best sort of additions that Cameron makes to the sort of unkillable slasher genre is something that almost no one picks up on. And what we have been complaining about for nigh 8 years. And that is, these people must stink. And finally, in this movie, someone's like, holy shit, what stinks in that room? Because the flesh on the outside of his unkillable skeleton is rotting away in real time because it's been shot at over and over again.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting that they evidently do not use synthetic skin. That it is apparently like whether it's generated in like a laboratory or, you know, just ripped off of humans and recycled. I don't know. But he's covered evidently in real human skin that rots and draws flies and smells.
Yeah. And, you know, that's a real thing that he has to deal with. It's an issue. And, you know, as a result, you get some, it just brings a reality to the situation that most slashers don't end up having to worry about. And for some reason we do, but none of the makers of those motion pictures do.
People would smell him coming, which now leads me to wonder. I have a love for characters in movies that show up for one scene and have maybe one line. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorites of all time is the gentleman he passes in the hallway as he sets out to make his last stand in trying to capture or kill Sarah Connor. This is after he's already removed his eye. So he's got like the one glowing red eye and the one human eye. So he has to wear sunglasses. And so he's got this giant fucking gun just slung over his shoulder. And he walks past this man who proceeds to turn around and say, God damn! That's his only line. But it's like, is he exclaiming over his size, the size of his gun, or the stench that must be emanating from him, or all three?
I think it's a bit of all three. He smells, he's gigantic, and appears to be a zombie. And that will get a goddamn out of somebody, honestly. And yeah, for what, you know, it's explained in movie that the T-600s had rubber skin, synthetic skin. And as a result, people would look at them and go, well, that's not fucking human. Let's shoot the shit out of that. Whatever that is, let's shoot it. And the T-800s have, you know, a facsimile of organic material over them, which also makes them eligible to go through the time machine because inorganic material cannot be exposed. They can't bring back guns. They can't just zap 1,000 metal Terminators into 1984. They have to be organic.
It's a lot of, you know, why can't you do this? Because I said so. That's why.
Yeah. Well, and then Cameron starts clapping at himself like, oh my God, can you believe this plot? When the psychiatrist at the police station is like, this is the perfect story. Usually these nuts come in with these crazy stories and there's always holes and it doesn't make any sense. This is a closed loop. This is a great story. He's telling the audience how good it is while they're watching it.
But also he's telling it in the framed as, wow, this absolute crazy person is telling this story that cannot be proved or disproven.
There's a kind of genius to it because no matter how you look at it, he can't prove it, but it also can't be disproven. And this is one of the rare psychiatrists, who are like, I could make $1 million off this guy, who later in Terminator 2 is definitely trying to make money off of this story. He's like, all I need are more crazy elements of this story. And then I'll finally have enough for a book to make money off of this.
I mean, you would think that considering that he left the police station within about 11 seconds before Schwarzenegger show. Actually, he walks past him.
Yeah, he looks at his beepers. The only reason he doesn't catch sight of Schwarzenegger.
Right. And so right before, Schwarzenegger drives that police car right into the station, you would think maybe he would go seek out another line of work. That he would take that as a sign from God to maybe go up, move to Vermont and take up pottery.
Right. Enjoy the time you have left on this earth before nuclear destruction because you can.
Right, because you have used up about 4 of your lives.
He's like, no, I've got so many more sweater sets to wear. Just you wait. That sequence before, because we all hit, in terms of pop culture cachet, I'll Be Back obviously is fantastic. But I think the reason that little sequence works is the mundane nature that happens before and after it of the guy. Yeah. Like, this is another night. Nothing. I am behind this glass and this wood. I'm in a police station. There's nothing that can really touch me. And unfortunately for him and everyone else in that police station, with 2 very notable exceptions, the Terminator does not give a fuck. He is not built with actual fucks to give, it turns out.
Yeah, he's not nervous about what if they spot me? What if they find me? He does not care. Someone spots you kill him. Right.
And as an escalation in terms of your Michael Myers and your Jason Voorhees style killer, there's nothing in him. There's no built-in parameters for, I need to lay low. I need to get away with this. I need to come out of this in one piece. That stuff is not built into his programming. It is very singular. And that is, I need to shoot this one person, and if anyone gets in my way, I shoot them. And that's what he does in an endless parade of massacre. He just shoots everybody.
Well, we haven't even mentioned the fact that one of the creepy things is he just goes in a phone book and starts looking for Sarah Connors. Yeah. Like he doesn't know where she lives. He doesn't know what she looks like until later, and then he just I'll just keep picking them off till I find the right one.
There are 3. I know she lives in town. I kill them 1, 2, 3, and my job is done. I walk into the ocean. I don't know what his plan is post actually accomplishing the task, or if, no one really cares. Like, would he just go sit in a chair and all right, we got 5 years to an apocalypse. I think it'll all work out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that, mission accomplished. He can, wait for his engine to wind down, as it were.
Yeah, just put himself into sleep mode until a nuclear explosion goes off.
I mean, I'm watching it right now. I love the fake out in Tech Noir, where she thinks it's Kyle Reese is looking for her.
Right.
But she thinks he's the one that's been stalking her and killing everybody, including by this point, her roommate. And I just love, I love how she notices him and he's just kind of looking at her sort of soulfully.
Right. I've been dreaming of this
and
moment.
I think this is the point you're like, oh gosh, he's really dreamy.
Wow, look at how feathered her hair is.
Because he's Michael Biehn and he looks really good here. And I mean, this is his big, what should have been his debut as a major star. And for, whatever reason, it didn't really happen. I mean, people know who he is, but he never really broke big. He didn't,
I think there's an element to this, and it's not uncommon. As in Terminator 2, you've got a guy who ends up playing the T-1000, and his career is also hampered by, drug use and, getting sober and trying to find a way to do this without depending on drugs and alcohol. It's not an uncommon experience, unfortunately, for actors or anyone else, but it's tough. But I also think there's an element that Biehn has to be used in a very specific circumstance. And this is one of those where it really excels. He's untrustworthy to start with. You don't know what his motivations are versus the Terminator before he explains himself. And when he does, it sounds crazy. And the only reason we know it isn't is because we have access to Arnold Schwarzenegger's T-800 running around town punching people through the gut. It's just, you get a lot of interesting dichotomy here where the things that would normally be safe for people in a slasher movie, in one of these, in one of those films that this is kind of copying the formula of to a degree, are not safe. You go into a public space. That's not safe. The Terminator doesn't care. You go into a police station. That's not safe. The Terminator doesn't care. Whereas there's an element of self-preservation, or at least, circumstance that keeps Michael Myers from mixing with General Pop. Jason Voorhees does not, with one rare exception, get into the center of town. And even then, he's like, walking and he's like kicking fucking, giant radios off the fucking sidewalk. Like, how Jason Voorhees makes it out of New York City is a genuine question I don't think we ask nearly enough.
Well, I mean, Reese explains it. He says, this is all he does,
Right.
This is what he is designed to do, is to find specific people. And he cannot be stopped.
Yeah.
And the cops are like, whatever. She'll be safe here. And we're gonna, you're gonna, get a ride to Looney Bin tomorrow.
Well, people's imaginations are not big enough to conceive of these.
It's just funny to me how many horror movies live or die on the concept of people ignoring the warning of he's coming, or it's coming, or whatever. Just like, whatever, I mean, I gotta go take my lunch break. It's like, obviously, someone tells you a crazy story and you're not going to believe it, but sometimes there's a certain urgency in people telling you something that maybe you ought to consider. Maybe they are telling the truth. I mean, wouldn't Hoyt to lock things up or put on alert or anything like that.
But you have, and we lived through this to a certain degree when, Obama was president and you had all these greatest generation and boomers watching Fox News, and they were told week in and week out, this guy is about to just steal all your money away from you, take your house. You are going to have your guns taken, and you will be forced at gunpoint to wear a tan suit and get gay married in front of a death panel. It's happening next week. And they tell you that for 8 fucking years. And then none of it fucking happened. but you jack people up to this point where they're just raw nerves of, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I got to do something. I got to do something. I got to do something. Wait a second. Is that a shitty game show host with a fake tan? Maybe he will save me from this fate. Because definitely if that black man isn't going to do that, that woman certainly is. And look what happened since, everybody. Like, you can tell people fantastical tales and maybe they don't believe it the first time. But if you never let up on the gas and just make the bullshit go, you can motivate people to make the worst possible fucking decisions.
Well, true, yes.
Whereas in the distant future, when a Terminator sidles up to your camp and magically starts speaking in an Austrian accent, and you're like, wait a second, how did you gain an Austrian accent after the nuclear war?
What did they
you haven't met Gunter?
Why did they program you to have an accent?
Why would you do that? But it's also so outrageous in some respects that it's another thing that you would ignore. Like, it makes less sense in the future of the Terminator than it does in 1984 Los Angeles, where there are plenty of jacked up dudes with European accents running around. Like, you can swing a dead cat and you might not hit one today, but at a certain point in the week, you will.
Probably watching Pumping Iron.
Right. Like, it in Iowa, it's more rare. Here, not so much. You know, it's the kind of thing you might think would be a problem for this film, but it's just not. Like, you meet stinky guys waiting for the bus all the time. And I'll tell you another thing that this film absolutely nails. All right. You're just going to have to take this on faith as someone who grew up in Los Angeles. This movie is the most accurate representation of what it was to eat at a Bob's Big Boy in the 1980s.
I always wanted the Bob's Big Boy statue.
Bob's Big Boy statue is the fucking best. I love Bob's Big Boy. There was a Bob's Big Boy that was on my way home from my elementary school. I love the smell of Bob's Big Boy. Is Bob's Big Boy good for me? Absolutely not. But you know, the one time a year I probably make it to Burbank and inside of Bob's Big Boy is a really happy fucking time for me. There's a lot about this movie that has a sleazy edge to it that feels like a ton of other movies that are made at the time. And it's weird how in this year that we've been talking about movies, we've come across this a few times, but LA in the early 80s is a special effect unto itself. You could just get away with crazy ass shit. The way they drive around downtown Los Angeles in this movie is truly bonkers. Like, I don't think you can do this now. Not for the fact that you couldn't pay an amount of money to do it, but it would be so extraordinarily expensive to get away with what was cheap at the time. You simply cannot do it.
Yeah. And again, it looks like, you know, even though it's one of the most populated cities in the world, still it looks like nobody's out on the streets. It's just, it's just desolate.
This is the same thing that kind of happens here that ends up happening for like Night of the Comet, which is another 1984 movie. I don't know that we'll be able to get to, but it's just in downtown LA. There's not a lot of human beings at night there. They're
all at Tech Noir.
Right. They're all at Tech Noir on Pico, which is west of downtown LA. And that's why the streets are absolutely empty. But you wash down the streets with a hose, and all of a sudden it takes on an element to itself. And a guy offing women who all have the same name from the phone book sounds like this should be like a trauma pickup. This is not something that should have the pop culture cachet that it does if you just read the description. It's in watching the movie and how it fires your imagination with the barest glimpse of its sci-fi bona fides that makes it into the classic it is. I mean, the amount of skeletons and particularly skulls. Why have they collected the skulls in one place?
Because it looks really cool when they get stepped on, Patrick. Why do you need
it? Well, you're right. When you're right, you're right, Gina.
What other reason do you need?
You don't. You absolutely don't. The charm to the special effects here of the future, and we barely get to see it because he certainly does not have the amount of money he needs to really make that come alive.
Yeah, no, it's wild to see the difference in everything, in style, in budget, in tone between this and Terminator 2 is wild to see the difference.
Because I think the ultimate goals are so very, very different. And here he is trying to scare people. Not in the same way that a Halloween is, but he is using that formula. The math problem here of how to affect people is ultimately, how can I Halloween this up? How can I make it feel like this one person is so vulnerable to what is an unknowable, unstoppable force? And he just executes it in such an outlandish, action-filled way that it transcends the genre it starts in and becomes all these other things on top of it. There's no way in the middle of Halloween you can, jet into the future where someone describes a dream to you. Gina, does he describe something to her that she has a dream about? He literally incepts her with something he experienced?
He's just really, really good at describing things.
So much of what we want to do can seem impossible, but the highest achievers among us are the people still reaching for something. The ones who aren't satisfied to stay where they are and want to keep climbing higher. It's those people who approach the impossible and embrace it. There's a vehicle for people like that. It's called the Defender. The Defender is an icon, reimagined through thoroughly modern design. It's got a tough, rigid body design and durable, lightweight monocoque architecture for extra strength. With precise detailing and compelling proportions, the exterior of the Defender is designed with integrity. This is a vehicle capable of great things, engineered to meet challenges head-on with an exterior that's been tested to the extreme. Experience the Defender's legendary capability off-road and on. And there's a family of vehicles for Defender. Meet the Defender 90, Defender 110, and the 8-seat Defender 130. So are you ready to embrace the impossible? Explore the Defender at LandRoverUSA.com.
Building a business may feel like a big jump, but OnDeck Small Business Loans can help keep you afloat. With lines of credit up to $100,000 and term loans up to $250,000, OnDeck lets you choose the loan that's right for your business. As a top-rated online small business lender, OnDeck's team of loan advisors can help you find the right business loan to fit your needs. Visit OnDeck.com for more information. Depending on certain loan attributes, your business loan may be issued by OnDeck or Celtic Bank. OnDeck does not lend in North Dakota. All loans and amounts subject to lender approval.
Fresh Step knows you'd do anything for your cat. From getting them food that's nicer than yours to letting them take a midday nap on your keyboard. So why settle for basic litter? Switch to Fresh Step. Fresh Step cat litter locks in liquid and odor on contact, giving you up to 15 days of odor control. Learn more at freshstep.com. Step it up to Fresh Step with superior odor control. Versus leading value clumping litter, Fresh Step is a registered trademark of the Clorox Pet Products Company. Febreze is used under license from the Procter & Gamble Company or its affiliates.
As a result, like when you see these flying hunter killers and these, these metal exoskeletons with these laser guns, and you're like, holy shit, that looks so fucking rad. It's just too good of an image for you to ever really remove from your brain. So no matter what other contrivances or this doesn't quite work for me or how does this make sense, it doesn't matter because the cumulative effect of the movie is that was so fucking thrilling. It felt like it never stopped. I thought there's no way Sarah Connor can outrun this killer. And she manages to find in the last possible second a way to do it. And it is thrilling. It is emotional. It is compelling. It is tightly directed. And the special effects were just the sleight of hand of how they make certain elements of the T-800 work. When he punches through that windshield, there's this entire windup that's absolutely all Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then it cuts to the side and you just see his face and his shoulder. And they've rigged up what looks to be his fist in his jacket, but it's actually a fist on a broom. And they push it all the way through the windshield. And it's fucking seamless, baby. That is old school Hollywood flim flam.
Well, what I love about it so much is, between this and the Alien movies, particularly the first Alien, is when we shifted from, this is our shady future to wow, this is gonna suck. And
they're gonna find a way to fuck this up so hard.
A lot of humans are gonna die at some point. Now, granted, everything that happens in to the Terminator movies I haven't seen all of the movies in the franchise, but
who has time in the day, Gina?
But the first two, at least, everything takes place on Earth.
Yeah.
But it's still the same thing where Earth is going to become uninhabitable at some point. Lo and behold, look where we are now in 2024. The best you and I can hope for is that we'll be dead by the time that happens. Maybe our grandchildren will have to be launched to Jupiter or whatever, and hopefully live on a commune there. But but the whole idea of somebody fucked up and made the Earth uninhabitable, and the future is bleak. It's you're still working these lousy jobs, but you're working them in space. At some point, this this company created a chip that will turn around and betray humans, and this everything that looked like it was going to improve the lives of humans ended up backfiring. And I love it sounds wild to say, considering we're kind of almost literally looking down the barrel of a gun at this point, but I appreciate that cynicism.
You just have to represent the worst possible scenarios. I think they are, in many respects, they do a good because they can scare you into action. But I also think the fantastical elements of this can also blind people. They're like, that's so wild, I don't really believe it. When I hear that the temperatures rise by small degrees and that the oceans are rising by inches, how can that possibly affect me? And then you have 100-year floods every 5 years, and you're like, well, I just don't get it. What? Someone explain this to me. It's not like I haven't been hearing about it consistently since the year 2000. But okay, it somewhat exposes you to it, but I also think it might inoculate people in the sort of lack of imagination department. It has to be so fantastical that it's this big thing rather than the accumulation of all the small things you can actually observe with your five senses.
Right.
I think that's kind of the genius of Cameron, is he is such a wildly big thinker. And while certain elements of the way he gets story points across they really punch you in the face. There is no worse example of this than unobtainium. Like, he named something unobtainium, Gina. And it resonated with people to the tune of $2+ billion.
Can I tell you a secret?
Sure.
I have not seen either of the Avatar movies.
Oh, you know what, Gina? They're a good time.
They're
honestly
I don't
a good
doubt
time.
that. But like with the first one, I don't remember why I didn't get a chance to see it in the theater. but I didn't. And then I thought, well, I'm going to miss a little something in the translation watching on TV. And I have a decent sized TV, but I feel like it's, you need your entire eyeballs need to see nothing but screen.
It is one of those things that really does benefit from 3D because he films it where he wants to put you in a world and he understands how 3D works. Whereas so many other people, and we've experienced this a couple times over the course of this movie. Let's look at the contemporaries of the Terminator here, when we're talking Friday the 13th 3D, or Parasite with a burnt oven mitt with teeth, or Jaws 3D. Those films are like, 3D is about the big moments where things pop out of the screen. And Cameron's like, oh, no. 3D is about taking you out of the seat you're in and allowing your mind to feel like you're a part of a world. He really goes for that all-encompassing feeling. And it's one of the best elements. I won't say it's the best, but it is one of the better elements of his Avatar world. Is that you feel like you're fucking a part of it.
Yeah, no, I wasn't, I didn't, it wasn't some, conscious decision to not go see it. I just didn't get a chance to. And then I figured, well, that ship sailed.
Well, you were one of the first people to come online and start talking about how the Na'vi are eating our pets. So I think you need to come to grips with the things that you have done and the damage done to the. I also want to apologize to the Haitian people, the real life people in Ohio whose lives have been fucked up by people making up fucking stories about it. Here I was going to say, making jokes.
Listen, if I have to make up stories to draw attention to the Na'vi problem, then I will continue to do so.
What if you're going to make up stories? Make up fucking Avatar. Make up the fucking Terminator. You just regurgitated racist tropes. It's not a story. You're not a storyteller. You're fucking lying to panic people into making shitty decisions about their government. It's so cynical and so fucking wrong. I hate them so much, Gina.
I do too. I like when I read the news anymore, I get like the pulsing vein in my forehead, like Michael Ironside and Scanners.
They just, in a way, we're dealing with our own. Listen, I don't want to get in trouble here.
I was gonna say, but you don't want our listeners to accuse us of going woke.
That's the last thing. We are so politically incorrect on this show, Gina. I feel like we are the Joe Rogans of the.
Wait. Are you sitting there with your disturbingly protruding nipples while you're reporting this?
Well, yes, and naked, and I've shaved myself.
I was going to say you've shaved every hair off your head and body.
I'm jacked up on artificial, HGH.
I mean, I
constantly screaming at people about low T.
I got some supplements I'd love to tell you about.
Just unfucking believable. But they, in a certain way, Trump and this crew are unstoppable. Like, you would think certain things would get out and people would hear that and they would just go, I got to cross this dude off my list. But to a certain amount of people, here in this country, they just like, wow, look at what that guy gets away with. If I could get away with like a 10th, I might really fucking come up in this world. And he just inspires people to do the worst possible shit.
Yeah.
Including a couple people who took a crack at him.
I was going to say, he does seem alarmingly unkillable.
Yes. And I want to make this very, very clear. I do not wish that kind of harm on Donald J. Trump. I want him to live, to see defeat. I want him to feel victory slip from his grasp and really live in that moment where he knows that his shit doesn't work anymore and he cannot get away with it. And he's just condemned to schlepping towards whatever grave his children, put on whatever,
golf course
plot of golf course that he's going to end up in.
Well, yeah,
like his first wife.
They have to do that because, that they actually put a grave that people can go to. They would have to hire someone to constantly clean the piss and shit off of it.
Right. Because it becomes the most popular toilet in town. And it's just harder to do on its golf courses. What were we talking about again? Oh, yeah, the Terminator.
Terminator. I mean, this is going to go up like a month before election day. And I mean, it's you can't. It's gotten to the point, like, obviously, whatever happens, we're going to keep keeping on. We're going to keep doing this, may have a good cry if the worst happens. The first time because I remember when we had just recently started the show for the 2016. And
we only really had 5 full months of at least the audience listening to us. Cause there was some false, we tried a bunch of times before we ended up releasing the first episode that we said, okay, I think this is at least 80% of what the formula is going forward. We kind of figured it out but there was a bunch of like, let's try it. And we didn't quite have all the moving parts. And I think, listen, if you want to start podcasting, if I'm going to give you one piece of advice, it's like, don't make the first thing you record have to be your first episode. Try it out for a little while. It's not going to hurt anyone to not release your worst effort. So, figure it out before you send it out into the world. But so we had been kind of working on it and then started sending out episodes in June. And then all that time thinking, certainly this man whose voice, he tells you, I sexually assault women because I'm a star and you can get away with it. And you think, well, that's a fucking nail in the coffin for that dude. That seems delicious. What a crazy story I'll have to tell my children one day about this dumb shit. And then, oh no, he just convinced just enough people. Oh shit. He convinced just enough people. And that's where we're kind of facing again. Like, it's an all hands on deck situation. I would love for an election that isn't like the most important election of our lifetime. Turns out every election is the most important election of your lifetime, folks.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have an election where I don't feel like on election night that I need to take some Xanax, crumble them in my hand, and put them on top of a pizza.
It just tastes better that way, though, Gina.
Well, yeah, it gives a little extra spice, a little crunch.
Yeah, I would love for this to be the reverse of 2016. In which
I want us to be still half drunk. Yeah, and like just opening the show by singing "Cool the Gang" Celebration.
As opposed to crawling into my bathroom and crying when I have 50 people watching, the election results come in on my outdoor screen. That's how everyone in my neighborhood learned that this was fucking happening. It happened in real time in front of us. And I don't know. There's as much of a nightmare as the characters in the Terminator feel like is because I know what will happen. It's not unknowable. The guy had 4 fucking years in office and look what he fucking did with it. It's a miracle we got out of it. We had to drag his ass out of office and he lost by a country fucking mile. So what are you going to do this time? You can't just say, well, I like his policies. I'm going to gatekeep here. Name a policy. Name 3 policies.
Just one.
Just one fucking policy. And it can't be a concept of a policy either. And I'll tell you, if he has a metal endoskeleton underneath that flesh,
oh my God,
what must be the condition of it? Because look at what's happening to the flesh.
I mean, he does seem like he's decomposing right in front of us. So that gives me some pleasure. Like, I mean, a serious question: has anybody seen Mitch McConnell recently?
No, I don't believe so.
Because he appeared to be decomposing like last year. Like he was getting like these like black patches on his hands, and it's like, fuck, dude, what's happening to you?
He's very elderly, like, and that's a delicate fucking position. That is not a job I think you can really do at a super advanced age. It was what all of us were reacting to with Biden, just kind of like, hey man, I think he's probably mentally all there, but that's a really hard fucking job. Like Obama aged 20 years and 8, and he didn't start at Joe's advanced age. So like it takes a lot out of you. And what is so exciting about having, maybe not the youngest person in the world, but someone who is the appropriate fucking age to be president of the United States, who can still speak to other people like a human being. Whereas JD Vance cannot order a fucking donut and goes on television and goes, listen, I need to lie to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be scared about this thing I want you to be scared about.
One of my favorite things on TikTok right now are the various impersonations of JD Vance and his awkwardness, which ranges from kind of awkward to maybe a serial killer to Edgar from Men in Black.
Right. Yeah. I think it's the Edgar from Men in Black version of him that seems most realistic to me.
And it's, everybody's got the various iterations of the eyeliner. One guy I saw had he made it look like the Alice Cooper look.
Yeah.
One guy just had like pieces of black tape under his eyes. and like there's so many different ones and they're all good. Like I think my favorite one is the guy who is he's done a couple different versions where one he's like at a concert with JD Vance and he's listening to Sweet Home Alabama and then he's like kind of like slowly bobbing his head like not to the rhythm of the music and then like turns and says, I love human music. and then there's one, the best one, I might have sent it to you, I'll have to send it to you afterwards if not, is he looks like he's doing an interview and then he turns and like looks directly like into his camera and stares for a full minute just breathing and like he does not change the expression on his face at all and when I tell you the cackling and wheezing that came out of me, I will send it to you when because I have it favorited on TikTok. But yeah, I mean I appreciate that we are getting some truly funny material out of all this, but you have to laugh because otherwise you're going to be constantly screaming.
Yes, that is the other thing. Like, I don't need someone yelling at me, don't get distracted. I can chew gum and walk at the same time. I absolutely need the release of making fun of these truly ridiculous, weird motherfuckers. And I also give money and I write postcards and I make phone calls. I do all this shit because I am desperate for them not to seize any lever of power at all. They just have to be taken away from any ability to shift or manipulate our easily shifted and manipulated system of government. It's just too fucking fragile for these complete dipshits with zero plans other than to seize power and wield it against anyone that they have the barest whiff of otherness about. It's just do it for your neighbors, do it for your kids, do it for yourself, do it for the most vulnerable amongst us who do not have enough power to say or do anything to protect themselves. We all fucking benefit. Just, I plead with you from the bottom of my heart. And I would like to say that we probably don't appeal much to the MAGA. But oddly, we probably all have family members or neighbors or people we interact with that we probably can influence in some way, shape, or form. And while it is uncomfortable, I promise you that discomfort is so much more worth it than the opposite effect.
Yeah, and if you vote wrong, you're going to get Terminators. Do you want Terminators?
Do you want the most incompetent fucking Terminators of all time? Because how they will be programmed will be J.D. Vance's running loose with automatic weapons.
Yeah, exactly.
And we will all have to become like Reese's. Is it crazy that Reese is able to scramble on all fours faster than I can sprint currently?
I mean, he is a super soldier.
He has a lot of practice, but the way he gets across the floor in that rickety department store on his hands and knees is like, holy shit. Would he win a 100-yard dash the way he's going? It's really fucking fast.
I mean, also he's like 25. I mean, you don't think you would have been able to do that when you were 25?
I definitely had better knees to do it. I would probably be faster on my 2 feet at 25, but as someone who has to run a couple times a week with my dog at agility class, I can tell you my running has become weirder and dumber than I've ever seen. Like Ollie took a video of me and I had already fallen down once.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh my God, please never take video of me running again. I am not in Tom Cruise level of, wow, that guy's moving. And I'm thinking, hey, I'm making it through an entire hour of sprinting. I'm doing pretty good at my age. And then I looked at the video and I'm like, no, you're barely surviving, friend. I'm like patting myself on the back so fucking hard. And yet, that's the end result of that. It's not a movie you have to go through the plot because the plot is so threadbare. It's not a plot driven movie.
And honestly, I mean, I would be surprised to encounter anyone, certainly the demographic that appears to listen to our show that has not seen it.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, if you said, well, I've seen T2 a million times and I've never gotten to it. I cannot stress enough how really interesting and gritty and fun and thrilling and scary this movie is.
It's T2 goes for more of a sci-fi action element.
Yeah.
Where in the original, because as you said, he's so much like a classic unstoppable masked murderer. It comes off much more like a horror movie. And also you just got the tones, whereas the ending of the first one is very bleak and foreboding, and the end of the second one is it's sad that he has to lower himself in the lava pit and all, but it's still a more hopeful ending.
Yeah. I mean, they taught a robot empathy,
right?
Like, that's an achievement. Whereas here it feels like the future's unknown, but it doesn't seem good. And in Terminator 2, it's like the future's unknown and we can make a better way for ourselves.
Right, exactly.
In terms of choosing your own death venture, it's really deciding how you want to get shot, because so many of these people.
I mean, I would say that the roommate and the boyfriend just get thrown around to death. I mean, certainly that boyfriend just, beaten up and thrown through the door, and he just probably died of shock.
If you ever wanted to see the Rick Rossovich from Top Gun get the holy shit kicked out of him, this is the movie for you. You're either shot or you get beaten the hell out of in your jockey shorts.
Or you get presumably the desk clerk dies when
from impact from a car.
Yeah, he gets squished by a car. I don't want that.
You could get launched into a gate. I'm assuming that Bill Paxton's punk is deader than a doornail after getting punched that hard.
Well, yes.
And his compatriot Brian Thompson gets basic gut punch to the point where Arnie has a bunch of his guts in his hand.
Yeah,
after he's been punched.
Before you rewatching it for this, I had I don't want to call it the Mandela effect. I've really grown to hate that, but
Mm-hmm.
I had misremembered it that he'd actually ripped his heart out.
Yeah. Well, I think because so many people take this moment and then extrapolate it to the Mortal Kombat. Oh, rip a guy's heart out. And like that has happened in a bunch of movies we've watched since this Terminator came out. So I think people elevate that moment like, wouldn't it be cool if? And I don't know that a bunch of them are actually as cool as this Terminator moment.
I mean, Reese, when he falls down a flight of stairs and breaks his neck.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all right. I'll take that.
Yeah.
And I get to be real fucking dreamy.
Yeah. You get some cool looking shoes and some paint splattered pants.
I got some, the morning of my death. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got some
great hand action.
I got having a crush on somebody off my chest.
Yeah. And then I think the worst death here is getting shot without getting the real chance to eat that post-sex sandwich.
Oh, yeah. No, that's no good.
Like she's having a full ass bologna and ham sandwich with peanut butter celery. That's a big appetite for her.
Is she already pregnant?
Because she's trying.
Because that's pregnant lady food.
she trying. That's for sure. She pulls out a dozen elements out of that refrigerator and goes and houses a fucking post-sex sandwich.
This is like she's like Dagwooding it.
I mean, if I'm going to make a Dagwood sandwich, I would like the ability to eat it. I do not want to be shot in the back before I could enjoy it. That seems real mean.
So what are you taking? Are you taking falling down a flight of stairs and breaking your neck too?
I'll just take execution style shot in my own home with a laser.
Yeah,
guidance.
I mean, she's probably doesn't have too much time to figure out what's going on before. I mean, she looks scared, but
she does look scared, but it's over real quick.
She's kind of a combination of scared and deeply confused at the same time.
Yeah.
So, which honestly, like if I opened the door and there was this giant motherfucker pointing a gun with a laser sight at me, I'd be like, oh, that's
yeah. That thought is on the wall behind
right,
you,
exactly. So. And good night. I'm no longer of this for this world.
Absolutely. So that for all of you out there who aren't part of our Patreon, there's a lot of great stuff for you to listen to on there. Just over 100 episodes of fun extra material for you to check out. And if you haven't rate or reviewed us on your podcatcher of choice, by all means do so. If you see our posts on social media, interact with it. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love for that to reach more people. It's been a little hard post Twitter to reach that many people. It's kind of inconsistent. So if you've migrated to other places, or if you want to come and be a part of the Facebook community, we would love to have you. Josh Hollis does all of our artwork. Go to joshhollis.com and go to Revenge Body Memphis at bandcamp.com for this theme and all of our remixes. Gina, where can people see and hear more from you on these here internets?
I write about movies and television and pop culture at my newsletter, GinaWatchesThings.substack.com. And I would apologize for us getting so political on this episode, but I don't apologize. I'm not sorry. No. Like if you listened to us long enough, you know what we are and you know how we feel about things. And I don't believe in, separating things. I think it's very silly when people complain if a horror movie is a metaphor for, something actually happening in reality. It feels a little like, this doesn't concern me, ergo I don't want to hear about it. And maybe you're not at an immediate risk of anything that could happen with the wrong people getting elected. And, technically speaking, we're the two of us are fairly down on the list. But, we have this thing that's called people we care about. Mm-hmm. And, whether we actually know these people or, human beings in general, there's that saying, I don't know how to convince you that you should care about other people. And so when you say, oh, I don't want to hear about this, I read that as you don't care about other people. And your opinion in that regard means very little to me.
And I have to believe that the people in our audience are smart enough and capable enough, and they've come with us this far. They're probably into this kind of message. It's probably someone around them who needs to be convinced.
Yeah, if any of you follow me on social media, none of this should surprise you.
Yeah. Yeah, we have not really kept our socials apolitical in any way, shape, or form. So this should not come as a surprise. But I think it's a pep talk here. We're all in the same boat, unless you're, we have a wide international audience as well now. And I want to assure them we take this seriously, and we would like our government to be better, to treat your government and your people better. And there's an opportunity to do that. And we're going to strive to do that in a month from now, where we will still be talking about horror movies and characters in the order in which they die. But that just about does it for now, for myself and for Gina. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
After the end of a good fight, you deserve an ice-cold reward. Medela, you put in the hours, the energy, the tough labor, because you know the bigger the fight, the better the reward. Medela, the mark of a fighter. Drink responsibly. Beer imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois.